Today, we're going to learn how to use a dictionary and how to use guide words to help you find words on a dictionary page. So on this slide here, we can see some different dictionaries. There's the ESL Basic English dictionaries, bilingual dictionaries, which means more than one language, picture dictionaries, standard monolingual dictionaries, which means a single language dictionary. Dictionaries are books that list and define most of the words in a language. With a dictionary, you can learn how to spell a word, what a word means, how to say a word, what part of speech a word is, how many syllables are in a word, whether or not to capitalize a word, how to abbreviate a word. An example here would be USA, which is an abbreviation for the United States of America, and the meanings of prefixes and suffixes for a word. How is a dictionary organized? So how is a dictionary set up? Your first key to remember when using dictionaries. To make dictionaries easier to use, the words are organized in alphabetical order. So when you pay attention to alphabetical order, that's the order that our letters in our alphabet go. Your second key to remember when using dictionaries is since there are so many words in a dictionary, guide words are used to help you locate a word quickly. Guide words are found at the top of each page. They tell you the first and last word that is found on that page. For example, here, our guide words are waiting game and walk. So the first word on this page is waiting game, and the last word on this page is walk. How do guide words help you find a word quickly? So if you look at the guide words, you use what you know about alphabetizing to decide if your word falls between the two guide words. Let's see what that means. Let's pretend we are looking up the word science. First, we would turn to the S section, so all the words that start with S. Then we would use the guide words and what we know about alphabetizing to decide the correct page in the S section. We would look at the guide words at the top of each page and decide which ones our word would come between in alphabetical order. So let's do that for the word science. Which one of these pages would contain the word science? So remember, for it to be on that page, science has to fall between those guide words. So science, the page with the guide words stamp and summer, or the page with the guide words sandwich and 70. We're going to try to figure out, does science go on the guide word page with stamp and summer, or on the guide word page with sandwich and 70? So I'm going to walk you through how we can figure that out. First, we will put the words stamp, science, and summer in alphabetical order. If science falls between stamp and summer, it would go on that page. So let's see what that looks like. Line up science, stamp, and summer like when we compared numbers. So remember, when we compared numbers, we lined up all the place values. Here, we're going to line up the letters from left to right. So we're going to compare from left to right. Science, stamp, and summer all begin with the letter S, so we can cross that out. Then we look at the next letter, so the next letter to the right. Science, stamp, and summer have different second letters. C comes before T or U, so it would be first. So science would come first in alphabetical order. So in alphabetical order, science comes before stamp and summer because C comes before T and U. We're going to repeat the process for stamp and summer. The letter T comes before U, so stamp would be next in alphabetical order, and summer would be last. So you can see here we repeat that again and look down, and then we have T and U. Since T comes before U in alphabetical order, stamp would be second, And then U comes last, so summer would be our last word. Science would not go on this guide word page with stamp and summer because it does not fall between them in alphabetical order. Science would come before stamp and summer, not between them, so it would not be on those guide word pages. Next, let's try science, sandwich, and 70. If science falls between sandwich and 70 in alphabetical order, then it would go on that dictionary page. We will use the same process we just used. Line up science, sandwich, and 70 like when we compared numbers. Compare again from left to right. Science, sandwich, and 70 all begin with S, so we can cross that out. Then, just like we did before, we're going to look at the second letter, so the next letter to the right. Science, sandwich, and 70 have different second letters. A comes before C or E, so sandwich would be first. So since A comes before C or E, sandwich is our first in alphabetical order. We're going to repeat the same process for science and 70. The letter C comes before E, so science would be next in alphabetical order and 70 would be last. Okay, so since C comes before E in the alphabet, science would be our next in alphabetical order and 70 would be last. Science falls between sandwich and 70 in alphabetical order, so it would go on that guide word page. So you can see here, sandwich, and then science, and then 70. So science would go on that guide word page because it's between sandwich and 70. Our third key to remember when using dictionaries is to be careful which definition you choose. So you've got to be careful which meaning you choose. So dictionary definitions, what do those mean? Have you ever looked up the definition for a word in the dictionary? If so, then you might have been confused by some of the parts of that definition. Today, we're going to learn what each part of a definition means. Vocabulary. So these are the vocabulary words you'll need to know what the parts of a dictionary definition mean. The head word is the word you are looking up. It is always in bold type. So it's always in bold. That's your head word. The entry is the information on the word you are looking up. So you'll see your head word, and then the entry is the information that it has for that word. The pronunciation tells you how to say the word. It's found in parentheses, like you can see here, in the definition, and that tells you how to say the word or how to pronounce it. It also will tell you the part of speech. That tells you how the word is used in a sentence. N means noun, V means verb, ADJ stands for adjective, and ADV stands for adverb. So that part of speech is going to tell you how you would use that word in a sentence. The definition is all the possible meanings for the word. Many words have more than one meaning. So we've heard that before with multiple meaning words, right? You might have a word that has more than one definition or more than one meaning. It will also show you examples. So it shows you how the word is used in a sentence. And that's usually found in italics. So that italic print is usually the examples of how you would use the word in a sentence. And finally, it has the etymology. The etymology tells you the history of the word and what language it came from. So in English, we've borrowed a lot of words from many different languages. So especially in English, you might see a lot of different things when you look at the etymology because it talks about where that word came from and its history. Fascinating stuff. So here's the definition for the word flag. Flag, or flag in parentheses, tells you its pronunciation. So in this case, it's pronounced just like it looks. The first definition, so we can see that number 1 there means it's the first definition, and that means it's the most commonly used. So if it's number 1 in the dictionary, that means that's the definition that's most often used or most commonly used. So in this case, it's a noun, and it's a piece of cloth with a pattern or symbol of a country, an organization, etc. And 2 means it's the second most common definition used. So in this case, it's a verb. So it means to stop or to signal. So it has got an example sentence there. We flagged down the police officer. So we can use flag to represent a literal flag of a country, an organization, etc. Or we can use flag as a verb for like flagging someone down, or in this sentence, we flagged down the police officer. So here we can look again. The word being defined is followed by the pronunciation in parentheses. The first word tells the word's part of speech. So here you see it's a noun. The second section is the actual definition for the word. So you can see there in red, those are the 2 definitions. And lastly, finally, you might see a sentence showing how the word is used, especially if the use is not the most common for the word. So remember, the first dictionary entry was the most common use for flag, and the second one is the second most common. So in this case, you might see a sentence telling you how it's used, especially if it's not the most common. So how do I decide which definition to use? So the first thing you'll do is decide how the word is used. So that comes down, again, a lot to your context clues and what you're trying to say, or what the book you're reading is trying to say if you're looking up a word. So you read all the meanings of the word given to you. Imagine a blank space in the sentence where the word appears. You're going to substitute the meaning you feel is correct in that sentence. If the sentence still makes sense, then you have the correct definition. So again, this is like we do with context clues. If you substitute a word that's a synonym or has the same meaning, and the sentence still makes sense, then you have the correct definition. So now you know how to use a dictionary, and you understand the importance of good dictionary skills. Because remember, successful students create goals, make school a priority, find balance, take responsibility for their learning, develop study plans, attend class, participate, talk to their teachers, use family and friends for support, and ask for help if needed. So learning how to do some of these things is a great way to help you become an even more successful student. So here's our activity that we're going to work on today. You're going to choose a word to look up in the dictionary. You're going to type that word and dictionary entry in your seesaw assignment. You're going to label the parts of the entry. If you don't have a dictionary at home, you can use dictionary.com. So remember, if you don't have a dictionary at home, you can use dictionary.com, and that is linked in your Schoology reading course. You'll also have a seesaw assignment where you're going to put a few words in alphabetical order and try to decide if that word is going to go on that guide word page or not. If you are having trouble with the activity or you're confused, please watch this video again to review how to put words in alphabetical order and determine whether or not they go on that guide word page.